Hello there, everybody, and welcome back to the Circling Seattle Sports Podcast. This is episode 135, which feels weird to say. Seattle interview series number 39. I have Adrienne Jordan with, is it Adrienne? Adrienne, anything? Get that right?
Yeah, they sound the same. Adrienne's good. Yeah.
Adrienne? Okay, good to know. Adrienne Jordan here, three-time Big Sky All-Conference first team, 2014 Big Sky co-defensive MVP, 2015 Big Sky defensive MVP, and has really been able to, I don't know if this is like something you'd consider a perk of the job or not, but been able to travel around Europe in a good extent. And obviously the stop in, well, not even Tacoma really, because it was 2020 and the season was being played in Utah. Or
Yep.
so, but I'd say well traveled. And I think that, I don't know on your behalf, but that might be a benefit, I'd say maybe. How have things been? I know that we're still dealing with the pandemic, and some places different than others.
Mhm.
But I know for the most part seasons are still taking place. So how have things been for you in the early stages of 2022?
Yeah. First, like, thanks for having me. And traveling around Europe is definitely a perk. Traveling in general, it's like wonderful. But in regards to COVID, it's been really, like you said, different everywhere that I've been. My first time playing with it was in the bubble, with the rain. And then yeah, it's just been kind of like take it as it comes basically everywhere I go. Um, Spain had completely different protocols than the US, and it's literally always changing and always different.
So, taking that into account, I want to go back to beginnings here. Are you able to pinpoint, really, it seems like there's two kind of roads for people, where the love of soccer began for you, or I guess where the journey began? Because I know that some people, it kind of picks up here and there, or they don't really gain love for the game until maybe late, until they actually start like playing at a higher level. So whatever works best for you, where did that journey for you begin with soccer, or where did the love of the game begin?
Well, the journey began, I think I was like 5 years old, and my parents I was first child, and everyone was playing soccer, so they just kind of put me in, and I hated it. Was like picking lilies, like running away from the ball, like just not having it. And they're like, okay, let's take her out and like try again next year. And so they did that, and then I was more into it at that point. But I mean, like you said, the love for me, like, it came late, I think. Of course, I enjoyed it, but I could tell other teammates, they loved it. They like
Mm.
ate, breathed, like slept, everything was around soccer. And I didn't have that until probably college. So my love came late.
So with that being said, also, with that love coming late, did you ever consider taking a different sport to maybe a higher level? Or did soccer, once you kind of got into it, just have a prevalent lead? Because as I mentioned to you before we started, lettered twice in soccer, lettered twice in swimming, twice in track, once in basketball. So I mean, it's not like you weren't a versatile athlete, right? Was that ever any of those, something you ever maybe considered saying, hey, maybe I want to take this to another level? Or was that never the case and soccer just kind of had that lead, and didn't look back?
Soccer definitely had the lead for me. I was always looking, where am I gonna play? But I will say track was like runner up. I was definitely looking into schools, maybe potentially running track and playing soccer. In the end, that didn't happen. But yeah, track, I ran my last 2 years of high school, so it was really fresh and just new and exciting, and I did well. Um, so it was in the back of my head probably up until the very end, until I signed to play. Yeah.
So, as someone who's got that experience, obviously not just experience, but lettering several times in those different sports, is that something that, if perhaps a younger athlete's like watching this, that you would recommend going out for several sports, just because not only is it something, to get you out there and to meet people, but also you can really find, I think, what suits best for you. Because if you don't try it, usually you never might know. Is it something that you would recommend? If obviously that's something that people can do. Obviously, schedules can get in the way, but if
Right.
that is something that's available for a younger athlete, do you think that's something that they should pursue?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I'm a big supporter of being a multi-sport athlete from the start on. I do believe it helps as you're developing your skill set in certain sports. It helps with the development of the body, and um, a lot of things go hand in hand that don't really seem like it maybe. So for example, swimming, you're using your whole body, but you're also working on breath control, and that can transfer over to the field or track and running. Yeah, my whole family, we all played multiple sports growing up. So again, like you said, it's not possible for everyone. You definitely need coaches and clubs that are willing to work with your schedule. So that is kind of the downfall, I guess you could say. We always have the main sport is soccer. So we never really miss soccer practice unless it's like high school soccer for like club soccer or something like that.
Mm.
It's always missing like swimming practice or something, like a side sport. So that's how we dealt with it. And then the coaches, my coaches growing up were very catering and welcoming to multi-sport athletes.
So to take it away, I know we just kind of, heavy athletic talk there. Um, can you describe the international, and then you can correct me on this if I'm botching it, baccalaureate diploma program as you graduated from that in May of 2012? I noticed that in doing research there, obviously, well, not obviously, if you don't know, Miss Jordan here comes from pretty early on gained dual citizenship, if I'm correct.
Mhm.
So I saw that diploma program, and I was a little bit interested. If you remember that at all, can you talk about that and what that was?
Yes, it was a long time ago. um, it was basically, um, I got college credits while I was in high school. So it's similar to the AP program. I know a lot of
Oh,
schools have AP, but this was just like the next level. So, like, again, it was a long time ago. Things might have changed. I might be getting it wrong, but like for example, um, in college, I was able to get enough credits that I could double major. So
mm,
like I took German in high school. I took I believe it was like the higher level placement test. So there's like higher level, there's a standard, and you get like certain amount of credits if you take the higher versus standard one. And I got enough credits in that, so I could skip the like basic levels of German in college, and that allowed me to kind of like
oh,
jump ahead. So instead of starting as a freshman in the German bachelor's, I was like kind of like a sophomore, you could say. Maybe not exactly, but that's how it worked. And then the same with other classes. Again, it was a long time ago, so I don't remember exactly, but it was really nice because, like I said, I took those college entry level classes that you have to take as a freshman
mm.
in high school, so I could skip those out my freshman year in college. And I believe it's international because they transfer internationally, but again, don't quote me on that. Like, I could get that wrong.
Yep.
Um,
But it sounds
yeah.
like it was a big help in double majoring and just kind of working towards that, progress
Mhm.
wise with credits and all of that.
Yeah, absolutely. I recommend it. Anyone that can do it, do it. It's not easy, that's for sure, but it's worth it in the end, in my opinion. So,
To get back on the athletic track, I just wanted to note that though, because
mhm.
obviously, in researching on, looking at the dual citizenship, but also the double major, I figured it was important to highlight that because obviously off the field, you know, stuff like that's important.
Mhm.
Um, what was your recruiting process like? I know that, we talked about lettering in several sports. Um, I know Colorado was home for you earlier on. Was there any thought of going anywhere else, or did Northern Colorado just seem like home? How did you end up there? And did you potentially end up anywhere else, college wise?
Um, yeah, the recruiting process for me was confusing. Mainly because I didn't personally have a direction. I didn't really know where I wanted to go or where I didn't want to go. I definitely had like big name schools in my head. I was like, oh, Notre Dame, like UCLA, like, but that's because my teammates were like, oh, I want to go to California. I want to do this. I want to do that. And I was like, yeah, that sounds nice. I never really was like, this is what I want. So that took me all over the place. I had a lot of help with my mom writing emails every time we went to college showcases and whatnot. One thing that I'll never forget is a coach at a school that it was in Colorado, and I was like, yeah, like that would be cool if I could go there. It's a big name school, like plays in a good league. And one of their coaches came out to one of my games and they emailed me back, which at the time, like no one was really emailing me back. And they're like, yeah, like watched you play, you'd probably be better off at like D2, like not a D1 school. And it absolutely just like blew my confidence. Oh, like out, it was gone, absolutely gone. I was like, am I like, should I even play? Am I even good enough to play? Like, because I had my eyes set on Division I schools, which of course, like all schools have good quality. It just, do you want a bigger school? Do you want it depends. For me, like I want a D1. And then so that happened and it really made me take a step back and kind of think, okay, is this what I want? Am I actually good enough to do this? Which is when track kind of like came more in the forefront and was like, maybe I should just run track and like focus on that. Like, I don't know. Then I kind of like regrouped. UNC came into the picture, and then University of Arkansas Little Rock came into the picture. And those at the end were the two schools that were really like pushing to have me come there. I was really, really close to going to Arkansas. The one thing that really just like put me off, I never lived anywhere outside of Colorado. And I thought about visiting, I thought about doing all that. I Googled it. And like in the end, I was just like, no, like I just wasn't ready to like leave the nest, so to speak, Colorado's nest, I guess. So then UNC it was, Northern Colorado. It was far enough away from home to where my parents couldn't just drop in on me whenever they wanted, but they could come watch my home games. So in the end, it was a good fit.
It's just interesting, after doing the research to hear not quite ready to leave the home nest and to see, where you've been through your pro career now.
Right.
But that is something that is interesting to me, not only the recruiting process, but just kind of college in general. I have a friend who, here at UW, UW is kind of the big school, obviously, in Seattle, and he had always been a UW guy. He went to look at Colorado State and just everything changed. So it's interesting to see how that changes, sometimes with just even a visit,
Yeah.
But obviously it's kind of where people feel most comfortable. And I think maybe more so now that kind of helps people having a transfer portal, because not every situation is one that I know athletes want to stay in. So yeah, it is interesting. It's part of the reason I like doing this so much is you get to see the journey. Because again, I could go and watch your game and be like, okay, they played a good game. But knowing how we got there is also really cool to me. So now at Northern Colorado, you talked about it being confusing, that recruiting process. What was your mindset headed into freshman year? Obviously, you stay a little bit closer to home, than Arkansas, obviously.
Yeah.
And how would you say that it played out? You started 15 games that year, the only freshman to start more than 8, and earned a Big Sky Defensive Player of the Week award in the season. How did you approach that season? Freshman year, could be daunting for several reasons outside of the fact that you're coming in to play with a new group of women. but also
Mhm.
it's college, it's new, how did you approach that freshman year?
I had no expectations. Honestly, I like the months leading up to going to college, we had all our coaches at our club, like everyone was just saying, don't expect to play. Like you're not going to play much. You're probably going to redshirt your first year because like the freshmen never play. It was like kind of those words just being thrown around constantly. So when I got to school, I was lucky enough. One of my friends, someone I've known for, I think we're probably like since 10 years old, since we were 10. And we've been playing together since we were like 13 or so, decided to go to Northern Colorado as well. So like I already kind of knew someone there from back home. So that was a comfort level. And then I had been chatting with some of the other incoming freshmen on Facebook, which was the social media at the time. So we were like getting connected through that. So I was really just doing my best to get out of my comfort zone and embrace this new life. On the field, I really just did what all that I knew how to do was just work hard, give it your best, give it your all that stuff. And then, yeah, at one point, my coach was like, all right, you're starting this. And I was kind of like mortified because I was taking a position of a fifth year senior. So,
Oh,
like there's like the hierarchy type when you come onto the team. And so I was just like she was nice. She was nice about it. She wasn't like standoffish or anything, but I definitely in my head I created this like, oh my gosh, she must hate me now because this happened. And yeah, no, she was nice. But yeah, it's definitely a whole nother game compared to what I was used to. And I never really thought about it, but when I look back now, like being where I'm at and like looking at pictures, I was like, oh my God, like I look like a child as a freshman in college because you're 18 years old and everyone develops differently. But I look at my little legs, they're like little sticks, and then I'm going against like grown women. Like I feel like I just wasn't like I wasn't at the same level. So it just like blows my mind. I don't know how I like managed to do that my freshman year, but I did it.
well, yeah, I mean that, and if you look at the following years, as we will here, it's not like that hard work didn't pay off, right? So
Mhm.
we'll look at that in a sec, but taking that into account, sort of and again, kind of an interesting year there. Um, what was the recovery process like with the injury that you suffered in your sophomore season, but also still being able to be named to the Big Sky All Conference honorable mention team to go through, I mean, an injury that sounded like it was decently significant, to miss some
Mhm.
games, but also be on an all conference honorable mention team. I mean, that's I'm sure that's a testament to how you're able to come back from that.
Yeah. That injury, again, looking back at it now, having like knowing what I know now, I definitely should not have played that season. Um,
Hmm.
it was yeah, it was a really, really good ankle sprain. And I just remember the doctor I saw basically saying it would have been better if you would have broken your ankle because
Ooh.
then it would have been an easier fix than what you've done. I just really, really just really stretched my bands out, the outside of my ankle. But I mean, like you said, like I came back, I played. Um, and that was, I don't know, it was dedication for sure. I spent a lot, basically any chance I got. I was in the rehab room. I was with my athletic trainers. I was always pushing them like, oh, like I can walk in a walking boot now. Can I ride a bike? Can I ride the like stationary? Like what can I do now? Like really just like pushing them. So like if they're watching, I apologize, like making their jobs harder. Um, but I mean, at the end of the day, it is what it is. I still kind of feel it here and there. I don't think it ever properly healed. I was in a boot again in the spring, but for me, the spring doesn't really matter because it's the spring and our important games are in the fall. So spoken like a true athlete, I don't know. But yeah, it it brought out a different side that I think was missing from my game. Um, because I never had a significant injury before that. I probably sprained my ankle like here and there, but it was something where it's like, oh, just walk it off ice it, you're be back in like a week, like not missing any games. So this is the first time where I was sitting on the sideline every single day. I was watching my team practice. I was collecting the balls. Like I was literally doing anything I could to be on the field um, without being on the field. So it really made me miss the game, I think. Um, yeah.
So we take that. I mean, it sounds like sort of like a pleasant surprise of a freshman year. Maybe not exactly an ideal sophomore season to
Mhm.
then junior season to be named Big Sky co-defensive conference MVP, Big Sky all conference first team that year. What changed? Did anything change, or was it still in just staying the course in the preparation, or was anything done differently heading into junior year?
I honestly think that injury, it just made something click. I remember playing in a game junior year and it just like everything just felt like, oh, this is right. Like this is how it should feel. Like everything was flowing and just it's like some wires in my brain and just like connected for the first time or something. And it just like it flowed. My game felt easy, it felt natural, it felt like I was supposed to be out on the field. Um, I chalk it up to being out for however long I was out for and not being able to play properly and or like play the way that I wanted to play. Um, yeah, honestly, it just something just switched on.
So with that being said, would you say the same of winning Big Sky defensive MVP in your senior year? Is that just something that after that injury, things just clicked and it just translated in those next two seasons? Would you say that was the case as well in senior year?
Yeah, I think I was really just I did feel the pressure to perform having won the co-defensive player of the year um the previous year and leading up to that I really just wanted to do everything that I could to um make myself the best that I could be and also look towards the future past senior year, senior season. Um I knew that the season was going to come and go really fast and I knew that I was not ready to stop playing completely. Um so I believe it was the spring of my junior season. My coach and I had a meeting and we were just kind of talking about options of what I could do to prepare myself for the future, what options even looked like playing in the NWSL or playing overseas. That's when conversations first started. And that's when I believe I got a message from a former youth club coach that I had, who is now coaching the Pride W League team, the Colorado Pride, that summer. And she reached out to me asking if I would play for her on that team. And so that was kind of like the opportunity that I had been looking for to kind of take the next step, which for me looked like stepping out of my comfort zone, um, stepping away from what I knew again. So before it was my club team and being in Colorado Springs and being home. The next step was going to UNC and playing there. And now the next step is playing on a team where I didn't know anyone because I hadn't done that before. So I did that summer. And I think that really helped me prepare for my senior season.
What was the journey like in the 2015 season in that tournament run? I know that seemed like it was a pretty big deal for the university. If I read that correctly, it was the first D1 tournament in club history. beating top seeded Idaho in PKs. What was that run like, in that group of women to be able to accomplish that feat?
It was absolutely wild. It was, yeah, like my senior season, my class's senior season. And we made this pact when we were freshmen. We're like, okay, in the 4 years that we're here, we're gonna win the Big Sky championship. We're gonna do it. And every single year before that, we had just missed out, or one way or another didn't happen. So this was like the final chance. And we did it. We had a really great squad, a lot of depth, which was really important. And yeah, taking it to PKs to Idaho, like they were no joke. Like that, they're quite a good school and they have a really good setup. It was just really hard fought. The tournaments are never easy because you have a lot of games in a short amount of time and quick turnovers and being in a different state depending on who's hosting. So yeah, but I just remember it was almost surreal when we won. Everyone just kind of ran every which way. Like usually I feel like the teams all like run together and meet and everyone celebrates together, but you had people like running to the bench, running to the person who took the PK, running to the goalkeeper. Like it was all over the place, but it was a real team effort. And I'm really proud of us still. That was definitely one of the highlights of my career.
So can you reflect a little bit on not only your time at Northern Colorado, but also being inducted into their Hall of Fame, what that might mean? Obviously, with your pro career, well, say a little bit busy, right? But to be immortalized effectively in your college's history, what does that mean to you?
I was speechless, honestly, when I found that out. I was actually in the bubble when I found out that was happening. It was really just such a great moment for me. I just really felt like I did my family proud. I don't know. It felt like everything that I had worked for and like time I put in at Northern Colorado was recognized. But also the things that I've done since then in a way. So it just really solidified where I'm at in my journey and what I'm doing. It definitely felt good. And I definitely owe Northern Colorado a lot. So it was great. It's fantastic, really.
So I know that in 2020, you were invited to speak with the team at the time about what was going on, or not necessarily what was going on then, but about racial injustice and racism as a whole. You know, can you talk about that experience a little bit? Speaking with the team and not only why it's important to have those conversations, but maybe as someone who's been in those locker rooms, right?
Mhm.
To have those conversations with teammates, because I'm sure you know about it, but there's a couple players over the offseason in the NWSL who were one was drafted, one was signed to clubs and have had some history of unsavory things, to say the least. So I feel like it may be important, not only to have those conversations, as human beings, but also with teammates, because locker rooms, I feel like, have always been such a big melting pot of different people.
Mhm.
And it's you'd think it'd be impossible to have that kind of stuff happen, but obviously that's not the case.
Right. Um, that was for me, a big step because I never had those conversations with anyone really. That for me was something almost like a gray zone because like I am mixed. So I personally have felt like my whole life has kind of been like, am I not? Like, do I speak on this? Do I not? So just very unsure of myself even, but I will say being with the Rain at that point in time, the team was taking really big steps, talking about race discrimination, microaggressions, like basically anything and everything. We were taking the time, we were speaking as a team. We were putting messages out as a team. And that really gave me the confidence to speak with the group of players at UNC at the time. I mean, I hope it at least got them thinking, some of them thinking about what they say, and speaking up if they hear someone say something that's just inappropriate, calling each other out. Northern Colorado, when I was there, was not very diverse. Like here and there, but it was also like not anything I wasn't used to personally. Growing up where I grew up, like I was used to being maybe the only like person of color on my team, or like one of two or one of three or something like. So it wasn't anything new. So I never really thought anything of it until I got older, started learning, started looking back on some things. And really my hope was speaking with the team at that time was just maybe to open their eyes earlier than I opened mine, or like was willing to, or felt confident enough to do that for myself. But yeah, that was a good start of a movement. I just hope that it continues.
Well, again, I think it was Emmanuel Acho who kind of said it was very important to have those uncomfortable conversations. As someone who's half white, half Filipino, I don't really know about that, right? Like I was saying with locker rooms, not to the college or professional level, but at least high school levels, the way I experienced it most with here today, a pretty wide range of different cultures and races and just people in general. Locker rooms just tend to be this melting pot again of so many people. So you'd think, you wouldn't have any room for that. But obviously, again, it's not the case. And why I thought it was important to note that conversation was had and to see, your insight on it.
Yeah. One thing I will say about that is having like been in multiple countries now, of course, like there's different cultures that come into play, but that's also been an experience in of itself. Like everyone's so quick to think of like, oh, America, like all the slavery and this and that, but like it's bigger than that. Like we've had a conversation here when I've been in Germany for a year, and we've had a sit down and we've had a talk about what's okay and what's not okay. And for us, we have, I think, like 4 or 5 Americans on the team, different races. And for us, like we'd hear something and we're just like, did you guys hear that? And for a couple months, it was kind of like here we go again, like, just brushed off. And then at a certain point, it was like, you know what? No, like this is enough now. Like it's time to educate. It's time to have those conversations that might be uncomfortable, but they're going to make our teammates better people, be more understanding, be more open-minded, and considerate of people that don't look like them. So that's just something, yeah.
Yeah, I think that's important, not only to make them better people, but to make sure that doesn't escalate or it doesn't go any further, than that.
Right.
So no, I do feel like that was something important to talk on, and I appreciate you sharing that, because I know, again, they're not necessarily comfortable conversations to have, So to now switch to the pro career here that both you and I have already, kind of alluded to several times. You talked about Colorado and the Pride. How do you remember, playing for the Pride in the W League? Team took second in the nation, from what I saw, losing to the Spirit Reserves in the finals, but also, you're still playing in Colorado. So I'm sure that was something that, must have been cool to an extent. What was that experience like?
Yeah, that was, it was a great experience because Colorado Pride, that was my youth club. Yeah. So I grew up playing for Pride. So it was basically the home games were in my backyard. I was like living at home, playing with players that I've like from everywhere, and different levels, You had some that had already played overseas that were like back home playing in Colorado because that's where they're from. Getting to travel to other states and play. I think we were up in Canada and saw a United game, I think at some point, if I remember correctly. It was like random, or maybe like Washington. But it was just like a great opportunity to just get out of Colorado and get back into almost like a youth like tournament style. Like we'd go to a lot of showcases in like California and here and there. But I hadn't really done that since being in college. We'd go places, but it was like literally for like 24 hours to play a game and then go on to the next one. So that was a nice experience. It again pushed me out of my comfort zone because I was really comfortable at Northern Colorado, like consistent starter, captain, like I was settled in. And now I'm at a team where there's players that are playing at like better schools than mine. Like, you know, like I show up there and everyone's like, oh, like what school do you go to? Oh, Washington State. Like, oh, I go to like, or I went to this one and that one. Everyone knows the school they're talking about. And I'm like, oh, I like Northern Colorado. And they're like, huh? Like I remember a player was like, she's like, where? And I was like, it's in Greeley. And she was like, where? I was like, no, don't worry about it.
Never
It doesn't
mind.
matter. Like, so it was like my first kind of like experience of being just like in a place where there was players that were like, they were better at better schools and whatever, competing for a position, competing for playing time. I definitely had a rough start. I think I was playing like out of position. They had a left-footed player, fullback. I'm a outside back, so I play on like both sides. But I had been exclusively playing on the left. So I was like then in a battle with someone who played for the team the year before, knew the coach like better than I did, and then had more experience. So then I was playing on the right side, and in my head I was like, oh, it's so much different from the left side. Like, what am I doing? And then it took a little bit, but then I got into the groove a little bit more. And by the end, I got like regular playing time. I think I was playing probably starting towards the end of the season in the tournament. But yeah, that was a very good experience. And our coach was a lot different than my college coach, because he has always been like very like laid back and never really yelled. And she was like a whole nother level. Like I knew her from growing up as being like the tough, like she was loud, she was tough, she was hard on her players, but all with like good intentions. It was never like crossing any boundaries or anything like that. It was just like, be better. If you play like a bad pass, like, come on, you can do that. Like you can play a ball better than that. I know, I've seen it, so do it. And that for me was difficult because as a player, like I hold what the coaches say in very high regard. So if a coach is like, that was a bad pass, then it was just my inner self-talk was just like, oh my gosh, you're a bad player. And it just like went from one mistake, one bad pass, went to like, should I even be playing anymore? I don't know. So I've worked on that, so don't worry. But yeah, it was a definite growing experience for me. And I definitely needed that for sure.
So transitioning, what was your draft experience like? You were initially drafted 35th overall by Chicago in the NWSL, becoming the first Big Sky player drafted into the league. So kind of a two-part. What was that draft experience like? And then how do you reflect on your time with Chicago? Because, spent camp with the Red Stars, it looked like, but then decided not to stay there. How did that come into play? Was it ultimately just a better decision to go overseas? How did that fall into place? So the draft experience for you, because I know that that's mainly a US thing, is the whole draft idea. So the draft experience for you, and then how you reflect on your time with the organization.
Yeah. So like I mentioned before, my like post-college career, that whole thought started spring of my junior year. And I had been talking with my coach, and of course he knows other coaches for years and that kind of thing, networking. And so by the end of my senior season, I had been talking with my coach, and I was dead set, like, I'm going to Germany. I'm playing there. That's been my goal since I decided this is when I want to play professional. Like, that's where I want to go. And I had gotten the contact information from an agent, from a player that I played with in the summer with the Pride, the Colorado Pride, and had written him. And he was kind of like, yeah, like, the German season, they have a winter break. So like, you can come out and do some trials, but you have to pay for it. And I was like, don't know if I want to do that. Like, I'm still in school, and I don't know. So then my coach at Northern Colorado suggested that I enter the draft. And at first I was like, am I going to be picked? I don't know. Like, I saw some of the names on the list, and of course, like, the schools, and I was like, okay, but I mean, I'll do it. Like, worst case, no one picks me, I'm still in the same boat. Best case, someone picks me, and then at least I have like a direction, and I have like that first stepping stone, basically. So I did that. I think it was actually before the NCAA tournament started.
Oh,
Yeah, so I think I entered the draft before that or shortly after. Don't quite remember which one. And then once, I think I like completely forgot about the draft. And of course, like, other people don't, like, they don't forget when, like, I had an internship, I was, trying to finish school, trying to sort things out. And draft day came along, and of course I was like sitting at home, like, watching it, and I was like, oh my gosh, and I was like, first round, like, looking at the players getting picked, and I was like, oh my gosh, like, look at that and look at this. And then I had to go to my internship, so then I was like,
ooh.
I mean, it's basically over, so I probably won't miss anything. Like, so I go to my internship, and I'm driving, and I show up there, and my phone just starts blowing up. Like, I sat down at my little desk, like, maybe 5 minutes, and my phone is just like buzzing. And I'm like, what is it? Like, who is calling me? And it was like my teammates, and I was like, like, end call, like, another teammate. I was like, oh my God, like, why are they calling me? So I pick up finally, and I'm like, sorry, boss, 1 second. I was like, hello, like, is everything okay? And they're like, oh my God, like, congratulations. And I'm like, what are you talking about? And they're like, you got drafted. Like, what do you mean? And I was like, nah, like, stop joking. And they're like, no, like, Chicago drafted you. And I was like, are you serious? Like, what? So like, went back in, and I was like, sorry, like, I just got drafted. And my boss was like, are you kidding me? Like, why are you here? Like, why are you so, like, surprised? And I was like, I didn't know. Like, I was just speechless. I was so confused. And it was just like a really surreal moment. And then, like, I think the coach from the summer, like, gave me a ring to congratulate me. And I was still at my internship, so I still had to work. Like, I was sent out on some errand, and I went to go do it. I came back, and my classmates on my soccer team, like, the girls that I had been going to school with for the last 4 years, they're hiding in one of the closets. And then my boss was like, oh, you can go put it in the closet. And I open it, and they're like, oh, surprise, congrats. So that was really nice, and did some interviews with some newspapers. But that was just really just like almost like an out of body experience for me, because I never thought that would have happened. I never thought, like, I would be drafted anywhere. I was really mentally prepared to, like, pay to go do trials, or like wait until the summer and then try to figure out what to do from there. So it really just made, I don't want to say, like, made things easier, but it, like I said, it like made the first step for me, kind of, because I was like, well, I guess I'm going to Chicago then. And I'll try to make that team, and then, like, see what happens after that. But yeah, I found out later that my head coach at Northern Colorado is good friends with the head coach at CSU, and he knew the coach of Chicago at the time and kind of like put in a word like, oh, you really need to watch this player. And the coach of Chicago watched the NCAA game that we played against Arizona and liked what he saw, I guess, and then just like kind of took a chance. So yeah, there's that. And then my time at Chicago was once again me really having to step out of my comfort zone, basically just leaving Colorado, like the only place that I've known and like called home really outside of Germany, which yeah, so I went to Chicago and lived with a host family, which like they're really nice people, nice family, but it was like almost uncomfortable for me because here I am like 20 something year old. I've been living on my own for the last like 4 years, more or less, like with, you know, adults like my age. And then I go move in with a family that has a 2-year-old and like an 18-month, oh wait, like, I don't know, a 2-year-old and like a kid younger than that. So like a real like family. And then like being a stranger going into someone's home, I know like a lot of people might be like, oh, like that's not weird. Like they welcomed you in. It's not like you're, you know, just like breaking in or something. But it was just like, oh man, I never really got comfortable in the situation. And again, they were really nice. Like took me to Chicago Bulls game, which was great. Like a wonderful experience. I think we understood each other well, but like I always felt like, you know, just kind of like, ugh. So there's that. And then on the field, if I'm being honest, like it was not a great experience for me. And it's not like anyone went out of their way to make it a bad experience, but no one went out of their way to make it a good one either. A lot of the draftees that were picked up by Chicago were from the area. So they had family in the area, they had friends in the area, or they knew each other previously for one reason or another. Whereas I was like maybe like the only one or like someone else who like was from the West Coast and like going to like Chicago, like I don't know. So there's that. Naturally just like introverted, so I had a really hard time making friends. Like my only friends on the team were people that had to drive me to practice because I didn't have a car. So they, you know, they kind of like pick me up and then you just like become friends because you have to spend time together because you're in the car together type of thing. So and they had been there before, they were on the team already the year before. So yeah, and then the coaching staff, like I don't know, I learned a lot, that's for sure. And when it came time to set the roster for the season, everyone, the coach like brought me into the office and was like, yeah, it was really between you and another draftee, and like she's just like technically better. And I was like, yeah, okay, like that's fair. It was like hard to hear because of course like I wanted to make the team and I wanted to like make everyone proud back home that was supporting me, and I didn't. So I really took it hard, and I was just like, okay, so like what am I gonna do? Like he made an offer for me to stay as a international replacement player, so I'd still be there, still training with the team probably, but I'd have to find work, which is fine. And then just kind of sort things out. And that was the plan initially. The team went to, I think it was the first game of the season. It was an away game. I stayed behind and I went to graduation. So that worked out nice because I was able to walk with my class and see my family and kind of plan out what we're going to do. And my parents had my car shipped out there for me, which was really nice of them as a graduation present. And then literally like 2 weeks later, as I was kind of getting settled, like, okay, this is my life now. This is what I'm doing. The coach pulls me into his office again and says, hey, like, just to let you know, I got an email from someone playing overseas. They're looking for players. I forwarded it to you. And I was like, oh, okay. So I looked at the email and it was some player playing in Sweden. They're looking for defenders, outside backs, basically saying if there's anyone who like was close to making the team but like needs more experience or whatever, like send them our way, please. And then I was like, yeah, I fit the bill, I guess. So I wrote an email back, and then yeah, I just left. A couple, I think it was maybe like 2 weeks later, maybe a week later, but it happened really fast after that.
So, switching then to Sweden, um, just I know we've talked about, Europe a little bit, but you've been at, Sweden, and I have to, I know maybe perhaps you've nailed it down now, but some of the names I just will not attempt, just, out of to make sure. But Sweden, playing in Iceland with IBV and winning an Icelandic Cup, heading over to Birmingham City and Atlanta, and then even a Spanish side after the rain. Can you just talk about those different stops a little bit, and what you might have picked up from those? Because I mean, it seems like, with the exception of that time with the rain that I will talk about here in a second, I mean, you've been able to visit some really unique places. And I know we talked about it, that's being a perk, but also, you talked about how COVID's been treated differently in different places, but also I want to know a little bit about how maybe coaches have been and what you might have picked up at those different stops, if that makes sense.
Yeah. So starting with Sweden, that was my very first experience with a professional team. So at the time, that's where the bar was set. I couldn't really complain. I had a roof over my head. I got some money every month. I had a bike to get me around town. And the player that actually wrote the email by chance like went to NAU, which was in my conference, the Big Sky conference. So we made that connection, and we became really good friends, still really good friends to this day. But yeah, Sweden was really, I would say, like more of a personal growth time, while also getting more experience playing, because Sweden again was a completely different style. And now I was playing, like, coming from Chicago, which is very, like, it's NWSL. Like, in my opinion, it's very athletic. Like, players are fast, they play direct. And that's like the NWSL. And then Sweden, it was more like European style. So we were playing the ball around the back a lot more, which I wasn't used to, because growing up in the States, we just play a different style of soccer. So yeah, that was a more off the pitch learning experience, getting my toes wet, like overseas, like living away from home, being overseas for the first time by myself, just a lot of firsts for me. I cried on the plane on the way there, because I was like, oh my God, this is my first international flight without my mom. Like, it was just like such a big step in my life, I feel like. I was able to work on certain techniques and my technical side of the game a lot more, which was nice. But yeah, after that first season, I guess like half a season I was there, I knew I didn't really want to go back to that team. Part of that was the coach, the setup. Like, for me, I didn't know what professional soccer was supposed to look like, but from other players on the team who had more experience playing at the professional level, they're like, this is not it. This is not professional. And I was like, oh, okay. So this is not professional. Got it. So yeah, at the end of that season, Sweden was great. The area was so nice. Got to experience the Swedish culture a little bit in the summer, midsummer, basically. Like, learn a new language, trying to order coffee in the coffee shop, like all that stuff. It was good. Didn't want to go back to that particular club, but that's fine. Yeah, so after that, I got in touch with the agent again from before, before I was drafted and everything. And he was the one that actually connected me to IBV in Iceland. Again, like that for me, I was like, Iceland plays soccer? Like what? Like I was really just like, Iceland, I know is not ice, but like it sounds cold, and didn't really know anything about the country at all. And then I went there, and like shortly before I got there, I got a U23 national team call up out of nowhere, out of the blue, really. So that was a whole nother experience. Iceland though was fantastic. I really enjoyed myself. Had a good season, had a really great coach, by far one of the best coaches I've had in my career. He really helped me grow. He was really focused on growing his players as individuals on the field, off the field, but you don't really get that so much, I think, at the professional level, where coaches really care about how individual players develop, because it's about getting wins. And it's kind of like, if you're a good player, you come play for this team, and maybe they tweak it a little bit, or like tweak how you play a little bit, but you have to be good. And he was focused on, taking like okay players, making them good, making good players great, like that kind of thing. So I really appreciated that. I wasn't really sure if I was going to go back or not. I did in the end, because we had a really good time. We won the cup. Really wanted to do that again, like the second time around. We weren't able to do that, which was a bummer, but at the end of that season, I knew that I had outgrown that level of play. I also was not where I wanted to be, because again, my goal was to play in Germany. And at the end of my second season in Iceland, I connected with a new agent, who was really focused on my goals as much as I was, and was willing to like go the distance basically to get me there. So after Iceland, I went to Italy. And that again, like I was so excited to go to Italy. I've always wanted to go there. I hadn't been before. Loved the food, loved the culture, loved the language, like just everything about it I loved. Again, out of my comfort zone. I was the only player that didn't speak English when I first showed up, and then a couple of weeks later, another American joined me, and that was hard. That was probably the hardest place that I've played at the time, because of that language barrier. And I really did my best to learn Italian, because I wanted to speak Italian. So like I wanted to learn the language, and I learned quite a bit, but it's always different sitting, reading a book and like speaking to your instructor than like having your coach like yelling at you and like speaking so fast. And then there's one player that was always translating, but you never get the same from the person translating as what the coach says. So again, it was a good time. Saw a lot of places off the field. That was a great perk. Played against a lot of good opponents. Worked on my technical skills again, because I think like the further south you go in Europe, the more kind of tiki-taka they play. So like that helps grow my game a little bit more. But yeah, again, did not want to go back to that team afterwards. From Italy to England. Again, England wasn't really on my radar, wasn't on my like must play in England. But that once again was a whole new experience, a different style of football, new players, new faces, new country, new food, like everything was just new. The league was great, and I'm excited to see how that league grows, because I think it's gonna continue to progress in the next couple of years. I learned a lot at that team as well. Our assistant coach took a lot of time to work on like specific technical details. And like for me, that was very important, because growing up, I didn't have that. Like I didn't really learn how to properly pass the ball. It was just kind of like, okay, make your foot like a golf club and just pass it. And I was like, okay, yeah. So he really like went through the details of like the biomechanics really of passing it. And I was like, oh, okay, that makes a lot of sense. So like grew a little, like everywhere I've gone, like I've grown a little bit in like different areas. Yeah, and then England, that season was cut short, which I'm really like still sad about because of Corona. And that's when, Corona started. But that brought me to play for the Reign in the bubble. And that was something that I never really thought. I did not want to go back to the NWSL. That was something that once I left Chicago, I was like, I will never play in America. Like, I'm not going to do it, because I did not have a good time. So it took a lot for me to like make that decision. My experience was completely different. So that was a good time with the Reign. Again, grew a lot in different areas. And yeah, I thought about continuing with the Reign, but again, like my goal was never to play in the States. It's always been to play in Germany. So every step that I've taken in my career was to get closer to playing in Germany, because a lot of the teams, like my agent would be like, oh, here's this player, and they'd be like, she plays in Iceland. Like, no thanks. And so like play in a better league. Yeah, no, really. Like play in a better league. Like Germany's up here. Like like it's a small country. I think there's only like 8 teams in the league, so it's a short league. It's short season. Like they have their reasons, and like, okay, that's fair. But then it's like everywhere I go, it felt like I was like, okay, well, I'm at the next level. I'm at the next level. How about now? And they're like, nah. So then I went to the Reign. I was like, okay, well, this is the NWSL, so it's a very good league. Very like prominent players I'll be playing against. Had some misfortunes there, like picked up an injury early on. That's okay. And after that, I went to Spain, which again, like never really wanted to play in Spain, but I lived on an island off the coast of Africa, and it was beautiful. It was sunny like every single day. I lived like 2 minutes from the beach. So definitely worth it. And again, grew my game and my mental game, which is very important, because that was another time where I really had to compete for a spot and play for a coach who I didn't really understand. Even though I took Spanish in school growing up, like Spanish is not that great. Yeah, and so from there I went to SC Sand in Germany, where I'm playing now, and I've reached my goal. So now I have to reevaluate my goals.
Geez, kind of took me on a whirlwind there.
I know, sorry.
No, but it answered it really well. It went in detail about it. And it's interesting, kind of like you talked about, to, whoever it was that looked at it, it's like, oh, she played in Iceland. Like, it, to me at least, it's interesting to see the different, like you were talking about, different stops, different learning opportunities, different ways to improve yourself, right? So I think that's something that's really interesting, and I think that'll give you some insight on something I'll ask after I talk about the Reign here. But yeah, I know you talked about it a little bit, but how was that experience? Because obviously you talk about like Chicago. I was like, I do not want to be back here, right? how was that different? What made it different? Was it, how the players were? Was it just how the organization was set up? Obviously, I don't know if it was, I'm sure it would be totally different as if you had been with the club, like say now, as opposed to when it was the bubble, just because of the way how things
Mhm,
were, right?
mhm.
Um, yes, but how did things shake up with the rain, obviously, and under those circumstances, not only with the bubble and playing a really kind of bizarre season-ish thing,
Mhm.
but also like you said, with that injury earlier on, there's kind of a really kind of like a big storm in a way.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think the rain, when I like showed up, it's always difficult being a new player on a new team. And it's, for me, it's pretty easy to see how things will go. Um, with Chicago, I felt like everyone was kind of more standoffish. Like people weren't really talk to you if they didn't know you. Whereas the rain, it was like right away, like, oh, a new face. Oh, hey, I'm blah, blah, blah. I'm like, and people just introduce themselves, even though like don't remember your name, even though you said it like 2 seconds ago. Um, it's just one of those situations. And then there's also like other new players that are fresh out of college or whatever. And so they're also getting to know people. At the time, we were actually in Montana, because that's where we kind of had like our preseason,
Yes.
um, which again, a big sky school. Uh, so it was just kind of like I had been there before, so I was like, oh, this is cool. And I like know one of the coaches at Montana, so like caught up with him a little bit. Um, but yeah, just from the start, the situation was just different, and I feel like that was the first time where I was like, okay, this is professional. Just like having athletic trainers available to you, it was essentially like college, my college experience, like having athletic trainers, like having water, having tracking devices, like having all these things, and like all the time. So it was just like having, they like brought someone in to do like massages on the team, and we took her with us to Utah when we went to the bubble, and she was in the bubble with us. So I was like, wow, this is amazing. Like the players ask for something and they get it. And like no one's saying like, oh, like that's unreasonable, or like you don't have the money for that, or like whatever, which of course, like there's always going to be restrictions, but it was just, they want to make their players happy because happy players perform well. And it's not like, like, we're kind of put on the back burner for whatever reason. It was like, you are professional athletes, like you are our focus. And that was a great experience. And again, like the players were welcoming. There's actually a player there who was at Chicago when I first went to Chicago. And like when I first saw her, I was like, oh my gosh, like this is so scary, because she was like scary in Chicago. Like she wasn't mean, but she also wasn't nice. Like it was just like never really talked with her. She like had her friends, like I just like had that image of her. And then with the ring, she was like completely different person. For I think it's just the environment. It was just like a happy, friendlier
Mm.
environment. And we ended up doing a lot of rehab together, because she also picked up an injury early on, very similar one. So we'd often like pass the ball with each other. And like at one point I asked her like to show me how to like kick the ball in a certain way, and she showed me, and it was just a learning experience. And like playing with legend like Jess Fishlock and Lauren Barnes, like playing with these players that like people know their names, and like watching how they move, how they play, and just picking up on um like the little details from watching, was like really big for me and really helped me, again, grow my game.
Yeah, no, that's, well, one, it's good to hear that because, if I heard that it was like Chicago, I'd be like, well, shoot, because
Yeah.
at least for me, the rain took, I don't know, I feel like gave me a chance out of nowhere because I got my first press credential ever with the rain. And
Mhm.
that was the first game of Challenge Cup last year, and I didn't miss a game. I spoke with Lou just a week ago around this
Mhm.
actual today. Well, not today,
Yeah.
but a week ago today. You get it.
Yeah.
And so no, it's been really great. So to hear this, like, oh shoot, obviously not everybody's going to have a good experience,
Mhm.
with every team. But to know that the organization does, reflect that, on the players is a good thing to hear. And I know that I
Mhm.
spoke to Bill Predmore at the announcement that the team was returning to Seattle. And he
Mhm.
seemed like a nice guy,
Mhm.
same with Laura Harvey.
Mhm.
Um, so no, that is, it's good to hear. But also, so, with you being able to play in these different leagues and obviously different places, um, you've seen how different leagues have been and, different teams have been run. you know, what are your thoughts on expansion in the NWSL and what it might mean for their league going forward? Because obviously it's a relatively newer league. I mean, what,
Mhm.
2013?
Mhm.
So I mean, there's still growth to be had, and obviously there have been their issues. I don't think that's something that, if they know about the league, is new, right? Especially last season. Um, but just expansion. I know that, having California teams is big just because California's market.
Mhm.
Like some players, funny, from Chicago basically said, hey, I want to go play back home, and that was
Mhm.
granted. So what
Mhm.
are your thoughts on expansion and what that might mean for the league? Because, and I'd like to know your side of it because of, your experience in different leagues and with different areas.
Yeah, I think it's fantastic that they're expanding. I would love to see a team in Colorado. That might get me to go back home and play. But yeah, something that I've been saying for years, basically since I started my professional career. It's like I don't understand how in the States, MLS and NWSL, they don't have relegation. Like in the MLS,
Mm,
especially because they have so many teams, and like the NWSL, like not so much. Like, but now with this expansion, there's more teams, and then you do have other leagues in the States
yep.
that like might not be professional, but they could like build into it. um I mean, I don't know how like the finances work, because I know like here sometimes you might play in the first league, and if you get relegated to the second league, then you lose sponsors, and then you have to play in
Mm,
the second league, and then you have to do well with what you have, and if you do well enough to get promoted again, then the sponsors come, and then you have the money. Like there's a minimum I think you have to be able to pay or like have financially.
mm-hmm.
So there's a lot of factors that I don't know all the details about. But like personally, I would really like to see promotion relegation situation go on in the NWSL, because right now I know they have the tournament, like they're continuing on, um, which is fine. But it's like, what are you playing for though? Like you're playing for like bragging rights, and then like,
Mm,
I mean, if you're at the bottom of the table, like nothing happens. You're just, you weren't as good as other teams that year, and try better next time. So I think that would bring an interesting, like, I don't know, I think it would be really interesting if something like that came along in upcoming years. I don't know if it ever would, but I would like that. Maybe like a Champions League, but for like North America.
mm.
That would be cool. um but I don't know, I'm not sure. I don't think the women's side has like a something like that. I think the men's side does, right? Like
Well, the
a
Sounders are playing in CONCACAF Champions League here in a little bit
yeah,
in Montegua. They're playing in the first round of 16 because they qualified. Um,
right.
but no, that would, like, a North America, that would make sense to me, not only because like you said, there are the different leagues in the US. I know that there's another big league relaunching
Mhm.
this season, I think, and I've been following it and seeing the different teams they add. I think they're going to have a team in Spokane in Washington. I pay attention to, my state, obviously, but
Mhm. Yeah.
um I know if Mia Official, who was a pretty high draft pick in this past year's draft, declined her rights to play where she was drafted, and she's going to go play in
Mhm.
Mexico. So,
Oh yeah.
that's,
Mhm.
I'm obviously, it's not like the talent's not around, so
Yeah.
that would be interesting to see.
Yeah.
Um, and I know on your thoughts of Colorado, I know that the ownership group that just bought RSL has said that they were going to bring back Utah.
Mhm.
So interested to see, how that continues to grow. I know it sucks for, at least talking to Lauren Barnes, obviously sucks to lose teammates, right? Because you get to know these
Mhm.
people, and if they're around for a few years and they're drafted and they're gone, But also,
Yeah.
I know that with Danny Weatherholt, she gets
Mhm.
to go back home, and that was a big deal for
Mhm.
her. So
Mhm.
it's obviously, I'm sure it's bittersweet, but in the long run, I'm sure it's better for the league as a whole. You
Mhm.
get the opportunity for more women to come into the league.
Yeah.
Um, so no, that is something that's interesting, but enough in WSL. We're in Germany now. Well, not we, you. Um, yeah, like you said, I mean, reevaluating your goals. I mean, is it working around different leagues in Germany, or I mean, are you still at that step where you're still looking at things and sort of deciding where you want to go, or is it just kind of also maybe staying in the moment with your current club?
Yeah, at the beginning of the season, I definitely had a hard time getting motivated, which was new to me because I'd always had a motivation, and I realized it's because like my whole professional career has been centered on playing in Germany. That was my like if my career ended before I played in Germany, it would be a failure. Like
Mhm.
I've said that multiple times throughout the years. So then I got my biggest goal, and then I was like sitting there one day and I was like, well then what am I doing? Why am I here? Like yeah, played in Germany, like I'm still playing in Germany, but like then what? Like now what? What am I trying to do now? Um and so like I talked with our sports psychiatrist here, and we had like a chat, and we started talking about like life after soccer, and I was like, oh no. Like I went home after that and I was like, nope. Like I'm not ready to have that conversation. Like I'm not at that point. So then I just, like step back and I was like, maybe it's not so bad not to have like a clear goal right now, like a clear motivation, and like just play. I was like, yeah, okay, we're just gonna play and we're gonna see what happens. Um, I do have like other things that I'd like to accomplish before everything's said and done, and I hang up my boots, which will probably not be for another 10 years, hopefully. Um, and like that's more around like playing in Champions League, maybe playing in France, so I get the big five in Europe. Um, and then maybe like doing like how the men do it and like going over to Asia and like playing there.
Mm.
I've been really intrigued with the culture and the lifestyle. I feel like it really kind of like lines up with how I live my life. So I'd be interested to see if that is just in my head or if that is like true. Um, so yeah, there's other things on my agenda. Um, of course, like getting a national team call up would be really great. But I also realize now, like I'm getting older, and there's like young talents coming in, like which is like fantastic. So that's something where if it happens, that'd be really great. But if it doesn't, like my career is not a failure type thing. So
It is interesting to note that it's kind of a, hey, I got here, now what,
yeah.
um but also I'm sure that it's, you're someone who to go back to how we talked about it earlier, kind of stay close to the nest kind of thing, to now where you've
Mhm.
been several different places. So
Mhm.
it seems like you kind of are able to do a pretty good job of adjusting about that. So it will be
Mhm.
interesting to see where this journey continues to take you. And if we're keeping with that 10-year time frame, I'm sure we'll see more expansion by then, and maybe there will be a Colorado. So
Yeah.
that'll be something to note. But no, I appreciate your time. Obviously, completely different time zones right now, but I always link this socials in the description. Is there anything that you want to
Mhm.
promote, put out there, or have me link in the description?
Um, yeah, just my Instagram. Yeah, I think that's it. That's probably what I'm on the most.
But nothing to really put out there, just kind of playing your game.
Yeah.
Well, I thank you for your time, and I'm interested to see where else it takes you. Again, thank you.
Yeah, thank you for having me.